Well, hey everybody, it's Josh here, and I'm going to do a little bit of reading off of my computer here. Ready for that? Alright, check it out. Wanted to do a video about dialogue and open debate versus discussion or argument. All of these words have, various connotations with them, and I think it's an important topic just because, because we have a lot of debates in this world. So I took a few notes here because I wanted to, these are various little sayings off the net and whatnot. I'll just read them out, because I could blab about it forever. But this guy says, a group discussion is a discussion among participants who have agreed on a serious topic. A debate is a formal method of interactive and representational argument. A conversation is a communication between two or more people. A speech, on the other hand, is an oral presentation by one person directed at a group. For a successful conversation, the partners must achieve a workable balance of contributions. I think that's a very key point. A lot of these things tend to be one-sided, and the person's not learning and the other person's trying to explain something. It becomes difficult. So, a successful conversation includes mutually interesting connections between the speakers or things the speakers know. For this to happen, those engaging in conversation must find a topic on which they both can relate in some sense. Those engaging in conversation naturally tend to relate the other speaker's statements to themselves. They may insert aspects of their lives into their replies to relate to the other person's opinions or points of conversation. Conversation is indispensable for the successful accomplishment of almost all activities between people, especially the coordination of work, the formation of friendship, and for learning. Conversation analysis is a branch of sociology which studies the structure and organization of human interaction, with a more specific focus on conversational interaction. Not all group discussions consist of anything that is in conflict, i.e. an interactive pep talk, but some end up in debates. So that's one point from there, and I think it's an interesting point made. I couldn't really add a lot to that, but I'm going to go ahead and read the next one here, and we'll see where we can go from there. Alright, so I'm going to read another one of these. Let's see which one I want to do first. Here's some, the speech, conversation, debate, engagement, communication. Here's some thoughts on each. This person says, number one, as a general concept, freedom of speech includes the right to decide how and when to speak, and to whom. 2. This freedom of speech also includes the right to choose not to speak, and not to speak to whomever, including to you. 3. No one is obliged to have a conversation with you. I think a lot of people should take that heed of that one. 4. If they are having a conversation with you, they are not obliged to give you the conversation you wanted or expected to have. Number 5. If you challenge someone to a debate, they are not obliged to have a debate with you. 6. If they do not debate you, this does not mean you win. You can't win a debate the other party has not agreed to. 7. Not all engagement is useful or fruitful, either for the participants or for the observers. Sometimes the best course of action is not to engage. I totally agree with that one. Irrelevant concepts, irrelevant ideas, arguing things like the moon is a hologram. Why argue it? 8. If people do not engage you, it is not necessarily because they are afraid to engage you. Maybe they don't have the time or the interest. Maybe they don't asshole and want nothing to do with you. I never proofread this. Sorry. Maybe it's a combination of some sort of all of the above. They may or may not tell you why. 9. Communication is not always confrontation. Confrontation is not always communication. If you see communication as an opportunity to fight, you make yourself without opponents. No, this does not mean you win either. 10. People will communicate as they will. Outside of your own spaces, you have no power to control or compel them. Attempts to dictate the terms of their communication may be ignored. Attempts to demand they should comply to your terms for communication will make you look like a child stamping a foot. That should be enough for a start. Well, I hadn't read any of these. I think that's fascinating. That is just a very eye-opening to me because I've discovered this a lot with people. They think you owe them a conversation or an explanation. They think you owe them an answer. And they get really angry if you don't. There have been people who have gotten angry at me for not answering them quick enough. There have been people who have been angry because I don't believe what they believe. It's very common. And there have been people who have asked me to an open debate, and I say I'm not interested. Say the debate against Jesus. Let's say a Christian wants to debate me, but I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another. I'm just not a Christian. I don't believe in Christianity as a literal, path that works for me, and I don't believe in the theory that you go to hell if you don't believe in Christianity. I'm not going to debate this issue because it's pointless. It does nobody any good to argue a point that both people strongly feel about it one way or the other. There are people who are swayed, but I'm not trying to sway any of them. I don't expect them to try to sway me, although they will. And this is the world we live in, but there are many other arguments. People want to argue, and it becomes almost an option with some people. They'll turn around on you, but you can see right through their guys. It's pretty obvious sometimes. And sometimes it's constructive, which we'll get to here. I got cut off on the last one. It bummed me out, but I'm going to try it again. It's called dialogue. Dialogue is a form of conversation and a form of relating to people that differs from mediation, negotiation, and debate, in that it seeks to inform and learn, but not persuade or resolve anything. This approach is often more successful in deep-rooted, value-based conflicts where negotiation is impossible. Progress in such situations requires the breakdown of stereotypes, a willingness to listen and respect others' views, and a willingness to open oneself to new ideas. Dialogue allows this to happen, often before people are willing to sit down and discuss resolution, consensus, or areas of common ground. While dialogue has been in use in conflict situations, by the Quakers for instance, for decades, it has become increasingly common for non-religious settings over the last 10 years. The Public Conversations Project, one of the leaders in applying dialogue to public debates, describes dialogue as a conversation in which people speak openly and listen respectfully and attentively. Dialogue excludes attack and defense and avoids derogatory attributions based on assumptions about the motives, meanings, or character of others. In dialogue, questions are sincere, stimulated by curiosity and interest. Answers often disclose what previously has been unspoken. This can be contrasted with debate, which has often become repetitive, entrenched, and rhetorical. Rather than opening people up to new ideas, debates tend to close them down. They get an "I already heard this 1,000 times" attitude, and they just talk louder and argue harder about their own views, rather than being receptive to others. The following table, taken from Diatribe to Dialogue on Public Issues, approaches drawn from Family Therapy, that's what long title, compares dialogue to debate, highlighting the key differences of several categories. What could they be? Okay, well, let's go for the rest of this here. Distinguishing destructive debate from dialogue. Destructive debate. Pre-meeting communication between sponsors and participants is minimal and largely irrelevant to what follows. Participants tend to be leaders known for propounding a carefully crafted position. The personas displayed in the debate are usually already familiar to the public. The behavior of the participants tends to conform to the stereotypes. The atmosphere is threatening. Attacks and interruptions are expected by the participants, and are usually permitted by the moderators. Participants speak as representatives of groups. Participants speak to their own constituents and perhaps to the undecided middle. Differences within sides are denied or minimized. Participants express unswerving commitment to a point of view, approach, or idea. Participants listen in order to refute the other side's data and expose faulty logic in their arguments. Questions are asked from a position of certainty. These questions are often rhetorical challenges or disguised statements. Statements are predictable and offer little new information. Success requires simple, impassioned statements. Debates operate within the constraints of the dominant public discourse. The discourse defines the problem and the options for resolution. It assumes that fundamental needs and values are already clearly understood. So, now we have dialogue. Pre-meeting contacts and preparation of participants are essential elements of the full process. Those chosen to participate are not necessarily outspoken leaders. Whoever they are, they speak as individuals whose own unique experiences differ in some respect from the others on their side. Their behavior is likely to vary in some degree and along some dimensions from stereotypical images others may hold of them. The atmosphere is one of safety. Facilitators propose, get agreements on, and enforce clear ground rules to enhance safety and promote respectful exchange. Participants speak as individuals from their own unique experience. Participants speak to one another. Differences among participants on the same side are revealed as individual and personal foundations of beliefs, and values are explored. Participants express uncertainties as well as deeply held beliefs. Participants listen to, understand, and gain insight into the beliefs and concerns of the others. Questions are asked from a position of curiosity. New information surfaces. Success requires exploration of the complexities of the issue being discussed. Participants are encouraged to question the dominant public discourse, that is, to express fundamental needs that may or may not be reflected in the discourse, and to explore various options for the problem, definition, and resolution. Participants may discover inadequacies in the usual language and concept used in the public debate. That pretty much says it all right there, even though it's complicated language. I hate reading stuff like that. The words aren't complicated, but you start talking and getting too many points across at once, and they tend to fade. But the idea that the usual language used in public debate is always flawed. It's never enough. And so I'm writing this to encourage a dialogue between people. Not an argument, not a battle. I guess in a nutshell, no, I don't expect everybody to change. I don't expect people to get along on every point. I don't expect people to always consider other people's point of view, because I know that we won't. We're human. But it is nice to associate with people who understand this idea of dialogue. The ultimate example I can think of with dialogue is when I talk with Christians, because I don't debate Christians, but I have a dialogue, only up to a point. But the dialogue is where we can express our views. They express that they believe that if I'm not saved by Jesus, that I'm going to spend eternity in hell. And I express to them that I believe that what they believe is fear-based and that it has no part in my life, and that they're missing out on things, and they think I'm missing out on things. That's what dialogue is. Explaining to each other why you have these views. And as it said in that part where it said that without becoming personal and character attacks on values or ethics, especially outside or beyond the argument or debate at hand. And I've found that it tends to be the part that kind of really, it saddens me, because when I finally view and voice the way that I feel, let's say about saying, well, you are empowered within yourself, you don't need Jesus, you can do this yourself. Someone will get angry and misconstrue that and say, you think you're your own God, and you think you're better than God, and then the next thing you know they're calling you an antichrist and saying that you're going to burn in hell for eternity. And I use these examples because they're debates that I've had, arguments I've had, and discussions I've had. And I've also had a few dialogues, which is nice. So I've also had various political dialogues, which we can actually exchange ideas on both sides. Political dialogue tends to be more of an argument or a debate. I mean, politics are always debates. But I guess the main issues, there's a lot of different issues at hand. Politics and sexism and racism. Sexism and racism are two things that I just opt to not address. Perhaps people disagree and think that they have to be called out. I believe that we all know in our gut, that we're all just people. I think, there's still ignorance out there. There's still racism, and it's always going to be there. We're always going to separate ourselves for some reason from other people. Just like having opposing sports teams, people getting in physical brawls over whose sports team is going to win. And so, we're humans. We do the best we can. And I sure as hell don't have the answers any more than the next guy, but I encourage an open dialogue so we're not just spitting in each other's faces and picking at each other's personal. I've had discussions with people where they're so desperate, they start picking on my looks. They pick on the clothes I'm wearing. They'll pick out things in my room. Even tell me to tidy up or tell me I have mental problems. All of that's just nonsense. I'm in touch with who I am, and that's really all I can do, the best I can do. And so the dialogues that I have, I find to be they're worth the debates and arguments that you have to wade through to get to the few good discussions where everybody gains from it and nobody's trying to push their views on others. And it's the world I'd like to live in. So those are my ideals, and I wish you all farewell.